here. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, was I doing all that? And there was no sound coming out. My fault. My fault. Welcome, 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 everybody to LMC. Hi guys, I'm Dave Sain, Senior Shepherd here at LMC. Sorry about the little mute thing there. It's Wednesday night. It's time for Bible study. I know it's been a minute since the last time we got together, but we are together today. Looking forward to it. Been looking forward to it all day long. Hopefully, you guys have had a good time with your family and friends over the last couple of weeks. Time to get back into some study. Let's just do some of this little commercial stuff before we jump into all of this. If this is the first time you're hanging out with us, please give us a thumbs up. Give us ring the bell if you want to be notified. Subscribe. Give us a like. Give us a share with somebody. Send this message out to someone else so that they can hear it, so that they can learn the things that we're talking about and the things that we're sharing. We would appreciate that. And if you feel like you're supporting LMC, you can do that by downloading our app on the Google Play Store or your app store. It's the LM app, just like the blue logo behind us or the logo you see right up on top of here. And I'm all decked out with logos today. I even got my Hidden Manna logo working. I didn't wear my shirt today. Maybe next week. I got my Hidden Manna logo there for Friday night. We do our Hidden Manna podcast. But if you'd like to support us, you can do that by downloading the app. And in the app, there's a section there where you can donate. We don't receive anything from YouTube or anything like that. So if you want to donate, if you want to be part of supporting what we do here, we would sincerely appreciate it. You can do that right through the app, or you can do it right on the website as well at livingmanna.org. We appreciate the support very, very much. Okay. So, again, welcome to those people that are starting to jump online right now. Good to see you guys again. We got an interesting topic. Now, this is, we started this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the thief on the cross, and I wanted to get into sort of the next phase of that. And I'm going to do that in a series of studies. The topic for tonight, let me pop this up so you guys can see it. The topic for tonight is death and the grave. Death and the grave. Now, I know, kind of morbid, right? We're going to be talking about death, but actually it's kind of exciting at the same time. This is a question I think all of us have asked from time to time. What is death? What does all of that mean? What happens when a person dies? And we're going to do our best to try to answer those questions. Of course, I don't have any experience that I could actually share with you, but I'm going to do my best to try to share what I understand of the scripture, or try to make as much sense of it as we can, and understand what the scripture actually says about it. Like everything else we do in Abba, we got to learn and believe what it is that Father has said to us. And then take it on faith, believe it, trust it. Abba is good. He's not a man that he should lie. And if that's his word, that's his word. And we can take that all the way to the grave, and of course, all the way to resurrection. But we are definitely going to talk about death and all the different aspects of it. What's the afterlife? What happens after all of this? That'll sort of be the content for the next couple of weeks anyway. But with all that, of course, we got a little bit different setup here. So forgive me. I'm all thumbs here, trying to figure out my own, where everything is. So, which is why I didn't hit the unmute. But hopefully you like the new setup. Thank you, PM, for all your efforts in doing that. We sincerely appreciate it. All right, let's get into this, guys. Let's open up with a word of prayer. Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts that are willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. All right, so let me make this screen a little bit bigger for you guys. So if you're watching on, and we're all over the place. We're on Roku, obviously Facebook. Hopefully you guys have been checking out our shorts. The shorts are on YouTube. The shorts are on TikTok. The shorts are on Instagram. They're all over the place. We're getting, lots and lots of hits. People are checking them out. Hopefully we're reaching a wider audience of people that are hopefully going to start to hear the gospel, but maybe a little bit differently than they're used to, and hopefully be interested in it and want to follow up with us and sort of learn with us. This is a learning experience. The whole thing's just a learning experience, guys. Don't claim to know the whole thing or know it all. We are working out. And you're going to see as we talk about death for a little bit, there's some things and some ideas that I had to sort of recheck and bend it to what the scripture actually says. And which is a good thing, when you realize that, hey, maybe what I'm thinking is not exactly what it says. You got to bend what you're thinking to what it says to really try to understand it. And that's what we're going to try to do over the next couple of weeks. So the death Death and the grave. Now, as I said, we started this off a couple of weeks back. We were talking about the thief on the cross. We were answering a question that someone had posted to us about the thief on the cross. You know, he didn't do any works, and yet he was still told by the master he would be with him in paradise on that day. And of course, listen, that's, yeah, amen. That's phenomenal. That's wonderful. If he had a chance to live after that, then he absolutely certainly would have been responsible to change his life, to do the things that Father asked him to do, to follow the commandments, to follow the instruction, the best he can, to witness, to share, all of that. He just did not have the opportunity. And while that is certainly possible for that, I guess we can call that sort of a deathbed conversion, which is sort of apropos to what we're talking about today. That is certainly not the thing you want to bank on. Right? Nobody knows what tomorrow brings. Nobody knows what what's about to happen. So be really, really diligent and serve Father while it's today, and then walk out your salvation with fear and trembling, because it is possible. It is possible, beloved, even after you have faith to believe, that one can walk away. One can walk away and go back to doing the things we did, or reject him, or commit sins that lead to death, and you don't want to go down that road. So really what keeping the commandments are for, what doing the instruction is, it's really about rewards, right? It's about the talents that you accumulate, the interest you accumulate on what Father has given to us. And so, but that does still leave us with the question of, so what happens on that day that Messiah dies? And here, of course, is Luke chapter 23 and verses 39 through 43. And you guys can also, like I said, I've said before, download the notes. They are available online. So you can follow along if you want on your own iPads and stuff, and print them out if you'd like. But here it is. The verses we've talked about before, but that are very, very important to us today. Luke chapter 23, verse 39. It says, and one of the evildoers, one of the other men on the cross, there's three there, who were hanged, was speaking evil of him, that is evil of the Mashiach, saying, if you are the Messiah, save yourself and us. But the other responded, rebuked him, saying, do you not even fear Elohim, since you are under the same judgment? And we indeed rightly so, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. So whatever it is they did, whatever got these guys to be capital punishment, this particular gentleman is admitting, listen, we did it, whatever it is. And who knows? It's Rome. Who knows what it could be? The reason why they're hanging there on the tree with the Mashiach. But they're there, and he acknowledges it, and he says, listen, we're here, we're getting the due reward of our deeds. But this one, meaning the Messiah, so evidently he knew of him, right? Knew of him. Maybe he was there at the feeding of the 5,000. Maybe he was there when he turned the tables over in Jerusalem. Maybe he was there, all the different times that the master ministers, who knows? He could have seen or heard about him at any point. But they are there for a good reason. But the master, he says, this one has done no wrong. So he knows that the master is hanging there unjustly. Verse 42 says, and so here's the master. So here's the request of the thief on the cross, or the evildoer on the cross, as it says in the scriptures version. And he said to Yahushua, Master, remember me when you come into your reign. Now, let's put this a different way. In some of the other versions, it would say, remember me when you come into your kingdom, right? So he's asking, so we got to kind of really wrap our minds around, what is he actually asking? And in a second, I'm going to try to answer that for you, but just a quick answer, I'm going to try to explain it to you, but the quick answer is, I think he's asking about resurrection, because obviously death is right around the corner for them. The kingdom, from their perspective, is resurrection. We'll see that in just a second. So his question, or his petition before the master, is, remember me in the resurrection. Remember me in your kingdom. Now, the master doesn't actually respond to the whole idea of the kingdom, but he does respond to him. And what he says to him certainly leads us into the conversation about death and what happens after death, as the master says this, verse 43. And Yahushua said to him, truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise. Today you shall be with me in paradise. Okay. So, and there's all sorts of, I guess it depends on what group is reading this. You've got different groups like Jehovah's Witnesses, and then most of your Protestant or charismatic or evangelical groups have a little bit different take on this. Some of our Jehovah Witnesses would look at this and say, well, what he's actually saying is, let me highlight it here so you guys can see it. I'm going to put it in purple. They sort of read this as, truly, I say to you today. And that's the comma there, even as the scriptures version is writing it, it almost sounds like he's saying, I'm saying this to you today as I'm hanging on the cross with you. All right, that's one way of looking at it, and there are absolutely people that look at it that way and read that, and I get that, because there's no real punctuation in the Greek or in the Hebrew, so we've got to sort of take the totality of Scripture when you translate it into English to realize, well, what's actually being said, because a comma makes a difference. Because if the comma is there and he says, "Truly I say to you today," that's like me saying, yeah, we're gonna have something, a party at the end of the year, but I'm telling you today that we're gonna have a party at the end of the year. That's not the same thing as saying, well, today we're gonna have a party. So you can look at it like that, and certainly there are groups that look at it like that. But but then there are others who, and I think this is probably I think this is a better way of looking at it. I think what the master is saying, truly I say to you today, comma. But the today meaning not just I'm talking about you right here, right now, but what he's saying is what's about to happen is going to happen today. Not I'm talking about you today, despite what we're going through, it's going to happen later, meaning resurrection, the kingdom to come. But I think what he's saying is today, meaning on this day, when all three of them are hanging there on a cross. On this day, here it is, you shall be with me in paradise. All right, so two different ways of looking at it. One, again, saying today, despite the circumstances that are here, yeah, there's going to be a resurrection. You're going to be with me in the resurrection. All right, that's one way. But I think actually what he's saying is today, this actual day, you're going to be with me in paradise. Okay, so again, two different ways of looking at it. We'll see if we can really come to some sort of conclusion on this, and maybe back it up with some other scripture as to what's actually being said here and how this relates to death. Because obviously what's about to happen, the Mashiach in just a few hours is going to give up his spirit. He's going to die. He's going to give up the ghost. He's going to give up his life. The two other guys, unfortunately, are going to go through some really some really horrible things are going to happen to them. They're going to have their legs broken. They're going to be thrown into Gehenna, into the place where the garbage dump is, and the fire and the rats, and they're going to die a horrible. I mean, it's all a horrible death. Everything that's going on here is a horrible death. But they're going to die an even more horrible death, even after the Messiah is gone. But still, they are going to die today, on that day, on the Passover, or prior to the eating of the Passover. They are going to die. Okay, so that being said, so what happens? Now, I know, and I think we've all sort of come in contact with this when we think about death, when we talk about death. We've all sort of been to a funeral before where we're with loved ones or friends. A friend maybe passed away. We're with their loved ones. We're there. We're trying to support them. We're grieving with them. And somebody would stand up and say, well, I know that so-and-so is in heaven with the Father. He's in a better place, or she's in a better place. They're in heaven with Father right now. They're at the pearly gates, and we sort of get this picture. Of course, there's just a picture there. This idea that you die, and all of a sudden you're standing before the pearly gates, and what is it from a sort of Catholic Christian Irish kind of, St. Peter's there with his iPad, and he's like looking for your name to see if if your name's on the iPad, and if you actually probably not it's probably not an apple, it's probably a fig pad. Back then they didn't have apples, they had figs, so he's looking through the fig pad, and he's like, I'm sorry, I don't see your name, and all of a sudden the floor opens up and you go down, and you're not getting into the pearly gates. That's unfortunately been a concept that has sort of moved through history, and people think about it that way. But is that actually biblical? Can we actually confirm that with scriptures, with the New Testament, with the Torah, with some of the other books? Can we confirm that? And the answer to that, just simply, is no. We don't immediately go to the pearly gates. We don't go to quote unquote heaven. However, this is the idea of the resurrection would have been on the mind of the thief on the cross, the kingdom to come, because that was certainly on the mind of the people of the first century. Here is John chapter 11, when Lazarus is going to be raised from the dead, right? So you know the story. He's dead there for a couple of days. Messiah finally does go. Martha runs out, Mary runs out. If you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. So here's chapter 11 and verse 21. So here's a death, right? Messiah is coming, and of course, amazing chapter, the Messiah is going to raise him from the dead. So John chapter 11 and verse 21 says, Martha then said to Yahushua, Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know whatever you might ask of Elohim, Elohim shall give you. Yahushua said to her, your brother shall rise again. And look what her answer is. So here's the mindset. Here's the thinking. Martha said to him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. That's the kingdom. That's the fullness of the kingdom. Everybody's there to be in the kingdom. And of course, the master then meets her sister Mary. Sort of the same conversation goes on, and then he raises Lazarus from the dead. So when the thief on the cross is saying, remember me when you come into your kingdom, the whole concept of the kingdom is when the Mashiach comes back and he establishes his kingdom. That's what he asked the master. But the master told him, you're going to be with me in paradise, not where the pearly gates are. That's not the context. That's not the idea. But he does tell him today. And again, I think that means on that day, sometime on that day, on this day, you're going to be with me in paradise. So I guess the question really is, what is he talking about? What does it mean that you'll be with me today? What is he referencing for this, for the thief that's hanging there with him? We've all, I think, have heard of these sort of experiences. So what is the experience of death? Listen, everybody's curious about this. We may not always talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it, right? Because it really, it's kind of morbid. It's kind of depressing, to think about the concept of the idea that death is coming. But it is something that we really should, and we do think about. We may think about it, alone, when we're by ourselves, when we're in our own heads. We do think about it. We realize our mortality is coming. The older you get, the weaker you get. You realize your body is not really your own anymore. It starts to break down, sickness, disease, injury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't matter whether you're young. It doesn't matter whether you're old. Nobody knows what tomorrow is going to bring. And I'm sure that we have all, if you've watched any sort of TV or videos and seen stuff about this, you've all, and maybe somebody's even had an experience like this, that what we call a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience. There's a lot of testimony, a lot of people that say that they have had an experience where their body has died. Sometimes this happens in a hospital, in an emergency room. They've gotten into a car crash or something, or a heart attack or whatever it is, and they're working on them in the hospital. And the individual says they saw themselves. They were actually sort of hovering above themselves, and they were looking at themselves there on the surgical table. They could hear everything. They could see everything. And again, we call this an out-of-body experience. And there's a lot of people that have talked about this. So the idea then is there something else after this? When the body does shut down, is there something else beyond that? Is there a part of us that still exist? And are these near-death experiences at least the first step into that? Of course, with a lot of these near-death experiences, something happens. They put the leads on them and contact or clear, and and they start the heart and boom, whatever was hovering above them that were hovering above themselves just gets slammed right back into the body. And, they wake up hours later and there they are, they're alive. And that's, again, been the testimony of a lot of people, that there's more to this existence than just this physical body. Now, we know just from a scientific perspective, matter cannot be created or destroyed. And I kind of wonder if that sort of play, or our understanding of that sort of plays into all of this, that even though we are of the flesh, that there is more to us than just the flesh. I'm just asking a question. Hopefully we're going to be able to answer some of that in just a couple of minutes. But of course, we're not going to get through the whole thing tonight, just a little bit more of introduction than anything else. But that's an interesting question. Is there more? We would certainly like to find out, to understand, to realize, is it that out-of-body experiences? Do we still have consciousness beyond the time when our heart stops? Are we still self-aware? Can we see ourselves? Is there a place that we go to? Okay, so just some questions, right? I don't necessarily have all the answers to that. I've not experienced this. I'm not telling you this from a personal experience, and maybe some of you have, like I said. But it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. To hear people do that, because sometimes they give details that, you couldn't get the details of that, the conversation that was had or whatever was said, unless that actually happened. So near-death experience or out-of-body experiences, are they sort of the prelude or the first step, but not quite, going the whole distance, but coming back? And obviously, if that's then Father gives us another chance at life. And hopefully and prayerfully and it'd be interesting to do a little study on this. What happens to the people that this happens to? Do they then really start to get right? Is this enough to really wake them up, to really start them, down the road of maybe doing that thing the way Father has asked of us to do it? So anyway, just, sort of interesting to think about. But let's get some definitions under our belt before we go further in this conversation of death and the grave, what it is, what it isn't, what happens, what does the Bible say about it. Again, I have no personal experience to share with you, but just the scripture. All right, so here's the word death as it appears in what we would call our English versions of the New Testament. It's the Greek word 2288, and it's the word thanatos, which is kind of weird, and I think it's not by accident. If everybody's a fan of the Marvel universe of superheroes, the main villain, I think, of the last big one was Thanos, and it means death. It means death figuratively or literally. It means to kill. It means to become dead, to kill, to mortify. Now, this is me in quotes. This is just me. I should have put it in yellow, but this is me. I'm sort of just summarizing it. Death is the cessation of physical life, right? So, and I don't have to tell you what death is. We all have an idea of what it is, but that's the definition, at least the way it appears in the Strong's Concordance or your Young's Concordance, G2288. So when you see the word death, that's what it's referring to. The word hell appears in many of our versions. Again, it's a little bit different in the Scriptures version. They really sort of pull back to the Hebrew language, the Hebrew definitions. But in our Greek versions, the word hell is synonymous with, or a replacement of, it can be either or, with the word grave. Now, there's the concept of hell that is absolutely a Greek concept of hell, which is different from what Sheol is. Similar, I guess, in some ways, but still it's a Greek concept. It's a Greek religious concept. We're not talking about Greek religious concepts here. We're talking about Hebrew religious concepts, the things that Father has given through the Hebrew prophets to give to all of us, for us to understand what this story is actually about. So the word hell or grave is, in your Greek, it's number 86. And in the Greek, it's the word Hades. Now, Hades is a place. Hades is also the name of a Greek god. So it has, multiple Greek meanings. But the way it's used in the writings of the New Testament to relay Hebrew concepts It comes from the negative participle edo, which is number 1492. So you guys can look these things up yourself. And it means the unseen, the place of departed souls, the grave, hell. And what it's actually referring to here is, because everything that we've got in the Greek is actually a reference to some other word that we get in the Hebrew, because that's where it's originally mentioned in the Torah and in the prophets, the Torah and the Tanakh. So that word hell or grave in the Torah and the Tanakh and in the Scriptures version, the way it would translate it, is either grave or it says Sheol. And that in your concordance is H7585. And in the concordance it says Hades, or the world of the dead, because one of the concepts of Hades from a Greek concept is that in Hades there is this world of the dead. There's the Elysian fields where you're sort of numb and just joyous and you don't know what's going on, and you're sort of, just drugged out on one side of Hades, and on the other side of Hades, all the warriors and the soldiers and people that were evil are there, and it's just a rotten, horrible place. That's the sort of Greek concept of it. Well, it's the world of the dead. So I get why the Greek writers would use that, or the Greek translators would use that. But in Hebrew, it's Sheol, Hades, or the world of the dead, as if a subterranean retreat. Now, not a retreat, I'm going on a retreat. It's a nice, fun thing. This is not a good thing. This is death we're talking about. But it's including its accessories and inmates. So all the things that come with being in whatever the place of the dead or the world of the dead is, the grave, hell, or the pit. So this is a really important bit of information. So you can use the word grave, you can use the word Sheol, you can use the word hell, so long as you understand not necessarily, the god Hades, the word hell. You can use the word grave, you can use the word pit. All of these are a reference to Sheol. Now we see Sheol all the time. So it means the actual grave that you're laid in, but it goes way, 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 way beyond the concept of just the ground that you are laid in. It has to do with the world of the dead. So by implication, there's a world. There's an existence. Can we go right back to the idea of an out-of-body experience? There seems to be consciousness beyond even the cessation of life. Here's Matthew chapter 16 and verse 18. You can see how this word is used, at least here in the New Testament. This is when Peter, Kepha, declares him the Mashiach, the son of El. It says, "And I also say to you that you are Kepha, and on this rock," that is on the Mashiach, on the testimony of who he is the son of Elohim, "I shall build my assembly, my church, my congregation, the house of Israel," the temple. That's what he's going to build. And it says, "And the gates of Sheol," now this is the Scriptures version. So when it says Sheol, it means the grave, death, the pit, the world of the dead, shall not overcome it. So he's telling us here in this instruction to Peter and the disciples that in this testimony, even Sheol, whatever this world is, this place is, that's not going to stop the resurrection or stop those who are mine from the resurrection, or going to stop those who are mine from being built up into an assembly. Wonderful promise, absolutely incredible promise, something we should all hold on to and remember each and every day of our lives. Okay, so just some definitions, right? We got a couple definitions in there. Remember these as we go forward from here. Question. All right, so if there's a Sheol or a place, a world of the dead for human beings, at least that's the implication so far. We haven't gotten really into any other scriptures about it yet, just some of the simple definitions. But if there is a place like that, if there is consciousness beyond this life that we understand, is there also a Sheol for the angels? Now, I'm just going to share a couple of quick scriptures, and you're going to see, yes, there is also a place for the dead, for the angels, or a place of a world. And as you can see, we're going to find out eventually, it's very, very connected to the world for the dead, for the humans. Here is Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 9. Now, all of Isaiah chapter 14 is about the king of Babylon. It's really talking about the angel that's leading the world astray, the deceiver, and what he's going to do is set himself up in the temple, destroy the temple, yada, yada, yada. But listen to chapter 14, verse 9. Messiah is talking about when he comes, he's going to restore things, peace to Israel, he's going to gather his people back together. But in verse 9, he tells the king of Babylon, who's really Hallel, who's really Lucifer, the morning star. He says, Sheol. Now, I put there in the PD, so you guys can see it. Let me highlight it so you guys can, I'm going to, right over here. Sheol, the pit, from beneath is excited about you. So he's talking about the dragon. He's talking about the one that is in charge of Babylon, not just the Babylon of ancient, the Babylon today, the mystery Babylon today, the one behind it all, the dragon who is the empowered one, who empowers the nations. That one, he's talking about. Sheol, the pit from beneath, is excited about you to meet you at your coming. He's talking about sending the dragon to the pit, to Sheol, at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the sovereigns of the nations. All of them respond and say to you, have you also become as weak as we are? So where are all these people he's talking about? They're in Sheol. They're in the grave. They're in the place of the dead. And Isaiah is telling us through a prophetic word through Abba, he's telling us of when the serpent goes down to the pit, those even in Sheol, in whatever, we haven't defined that what it is for humanity yet, but there's obviously people there, the kings of the nations, their thrones, they're going to stand up, they're going to look at, they're going to see this thing happening to him. And all of them will respond and say, have you also become as weak as we? Have you become like us, dead? Are you imprisoned? Are you awaiting for something? Your arrogance has been brought down to Sheol. So where is the king of Babylon going? Sheol. Or really, you're going to find out in a second, it's the deceiver. Your arrogance has been brought down to Sheol, and the sound of your stringed instruments. The maggot is spread under you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from the heavens, O Hallel. Here it is. Oh, hello. Hallel, the crescent one. Son of the morning. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the nations. So the one who empowered the nations to do all the horrible, terrible things it did, at some point in the future, is going to get his, and he is also, just like all the nations he's deceived that have gone down to wherever Sheol is, he is also going to go to Sheol, or to the grave. Here is the same story, the same description, except now we're going to read in the book of Revelation, and you're going to realize, well, he's talking about the same exact thing. Here's Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. This is after the first resurrection. It says, and I saw a messenger coming down from heaven, having the key to the pit. Well, what's the pit? Sheol, the grave, Hades, hell. He had the key to the pit of the deep and a great chain in his hand. And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan. Satan just means a deceiver. And bound, there's a lot of different devils, but this particular one, the dragon, and bound him for 1,000 years. In what? In chains. Awesome picture, by the way, right next to it, right? You see that this humongous angel, right? And he's down there in a place where it seems like it's kind of hot, right? And what is he? He's chained up. And bound him with the chains for 1,000 years and threw him into the pit, into Sheol. of the deep, and shut him up, and set a seal on him, so that he would lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that, he has to be released for a little while. Another story for another day as to why that might happen, what all of this is about. I mean, if he's already bound, why not just keep him bound? Bigger story, bigger message for another day. But what I want you to notice is that what we're reading in Isaiah 14:9 is what we're reading in Revelation chapter 20, verse 1. It is the serpent, it is Hallel, it is the son of the morning, the one who exalts himself above the throne of El, who tries to take on El, who wants to be like El. He's going to be cast down. Cast down to where? The pit, to Sheol. All right, so is Sheol also a place for angels? I think so. I think that's what it's saying right here. Yes, it's a place for angels as well. So there's a human aspect to this of what we would call death, but this also seems to be a place not just for humans. It also seems to be a place where that also affects the angelic beings themselves. All right. So with that said, here is some biblical clues about death. But I'm not just talking about our death now. I'm talking about the death, the grave, Sheol, not just for Satan, not just for the dragon, but for other angels as well. And we're not going to be able to really explain all of this today, but I'm just, sort of throwing it out there to sort of whet your appetite to really start to think about this. Here's some verses that taken by themselves really cause more questions than answers. And if you're missing some vital information, what we've done over, the last 2 millennia is we've come up with all sorts of other stories because we're missing vital information. And hopefully we're going to get that vital information tonight or in the next couple of weeks. So here's 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4. So we know that the gates of hell, the gates of the grave, the gates of Sheol are not going to be able to hold back his people, right? The gates of the grave. So evidently his people are going to be part of Sheol, whatever that is for humans. Now there's a Sheol, some grave for the angels as well. 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4, it says, "For if Elohim did not spare the messengers," and by messengers it means angels, "who sinned, but sent them to Tartarus." The word Tartarus is G5020. And if you look with me just underneath that in yellow here, here's the actual definition of what G50, because again, this is a Greek concept, but they're using the word because it's the best Greek word to describe a Hebraic concept that's already been given to us in Hebrew, but now we're reading it in Greek. It says, "Who sinned and sent them to Tartarus." G5020 means the deep abyss or pit of Hades, to incarcerate in torment. So this abyss, this Tartarus, this place where the dragon is to be chained up, this place where this particular verse here in 2 Peter is telling us it's not just the serpent who's coming that winds up in this place of confinement, but he tells us all the messengers who sinned. Well, what messengers is he referring to? And of course, you can see the kind of neat picture there. You've got multiple angels there, and they're all chained up. They're all chained up in this place. It's dark. They're all chained up. They can't go anywhere. It is a place of imprisonment for them. It's really important that we understand what Peter's talking about. This is going to help us, because if we don't get this, then we're not going to get what the whole story of death is. And I guess that's probably been, my era over the years and lots of other people's eras over the years. We just didn't get the whole story. We didn't have the whole story. So we were trying to pick it out of what we have in the New Testament, what we have in the Torah, but the whole story is not complete there. There's more to it than just that. So anyway, here's the book of Jude. Verses 5 and 6 that says almost the same thing. It says, "But I intend to remind." So this is the master's brother now, right? So we've got Peter, we've got Cephas, and now we've got the master's brother himself. And he's saying, "But I intend to remind you, though you once knew this, that Yahuwah, having saved a people out of the land of Mitzrayim, meaning Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe. So he's sort of proving judgment. He's saying, listen, you better realize Father will judge, because he judged the people coming out of Egypt. Verse 6, and he also judged the messengers. Again, in the scriptures version, that means the angels, who did not keep their own principality, but left their own dwelling. He has kept in, and here it is, in everlasting shackles under darkness for judgment of the great day. Where? In the deep abyss, or the pit of Hades, to incarcerate in torment. So there is a place, an imprisonment place for angels. Which angels? The angels that sin. We'll talk more about that in just a second, because again, that's really a big part of the missing piece of the story here that we just don't get. It's been removed from us. We've lost it. But it's vital to, if you want to understand what happens with us, if you want to understand what happens when our life stops, when our heart stops, when our mind stops, when our bodies stop, and they go back to the grave, you got to understand this. You got to understand where this is coming from. You got to understand how they're thinking in the first century, and even earlier than, obviously much earlier than the first century, way, way beyond that, but how they're thinking, because the master thinks this way, and he confirms it. Peter thinks this way. Jude thinks this way. They're all pulling from similar information that most of us don't know, don't have, don't realize it's there, or we are discouraged from actually looking into it. And that's when we start, sort of believing all of these other concepts and ideas that have just sort of just made their way traditionally. Like, you're going to go up to the pearly gates as soon as you die, and you're going to be in heaven. You're going to be in New Jerusalem. That's not the story. I'm not saying we're not going to make it. I hope you're going to make it to the pearly gates, but that's not the story. That's not the order of the story. Neither is that what he told the man that was hanging on the cross with him. He asked about being in the kingdom. Master's response was, today you'll be with me in paradise. Didn't tell him you're going to be with me in resurrection in the kingdom on that day, but on that day you'll be with me in paradise. And I know it sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but I'm not. The master is. Okay, so having said that, let's take a look at this. This is a crazy scripture, right? Here's something really, really interesting, awesome picture. Here is 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 18. It says, because even Messiah once suffered for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to Elohim, having been put to death indeed in the flesh and made alive in the spirit. So he's talking about the death and the resurrection of the master, in which, now I put it there in blue, I'll highlight it again here in pink so you can see it, in which, now we're talking about Mashiach. We're talking about his death. I know this is crazy, but think about this a second. In which also he, meaning the Messiah, went and proclaimed unto the spirits in prison. In what prison? In Sheol. In the grave, in the pit. Wait a minute, you're telling me they're with the angels? No, but they are kind of next door. But no, they're not in the same exact place as the angels, but they are somewhere. So we're talking about, so is there evidence just in some of the verses we're reading right now that yes, there is more of consciousness even after the heart stops, even after the mind stops, if it's an out of body thing, whatever it is, however we can explain that, there's evidence of this. Well, here it is, because it tells us the Messiah, he went and he proclaimed unto the spirits in prison, who were disobedient at the time when the patience of Elohim waited in the days of Noah. These are people that have been long since dead. Long since dead. And it tells us that they are in prison. Now, we're going to find out in a second that there's more to this than just a prison, But what he's referring to here is a prison. That Messiah, after his death, went and preached, proclaimed to the spirits in prison, Sheol, the grave, the pit, who were disobedient at the time when the patience of Elohim waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is eight beings, were saved through water. So he's telling us what happened in that day, what happened out of their rebellion. All of those people died. And what does Messiah do? Well, he tells us Messiah went and visited them. When? On that day. On that day. Or sometime in those 3 days, because on that day, he would have been with the thief that dies with him in paradise. But here you're talking about as prison. Is prison and paradise the same thing? We haven't gotten there yet, but good question. We'll hopefully get there. I don't know about tonight, but we'll get there soon. All right. So awesome picture. Then there, of course, a picture of Messiah, and he's there. He's in Sheol. He is in Sheol, beyond the physical flesh. He is in Sheol with others who are there beyond the physical flesh. So is there evidence, even from just the New Testament scriptures we're looking at, is there evidence that there is existence and consciousness afterward? Well, yeah, I mean, if he's going to go there and he's going to preach to them, then they've got to understand them. So, I mean, so what is he actually telling them? I would imagine he's telling them who he is. You know, the son of El. This is what it's always been about. I think that's what he's doing. He's proving to them. He's showing them. Okay, so that being said, here is just a little graph that we're going to explore later on, but I want to throw it at you right now. This story, even the verses that we just read, can only be understood. They only make sense if you read them on our own, and you start to put those pieces together, from the angels to Messiah's down there. What's happening? Where are these people? Are they going to heaven? Are they at the pearly gates? Well, there's nothing that says that, but there is a lot of stuff that says something else in other places. And the story that we're going to wind up getting is the following: that Sheol, the grave, death, beyond just the literal physical grave, death is a place. And we only get this story. There's only one place we get this story from, and that's in the book of Enoch. And what you're going to realize is the verses that we just read from Peter and Jude, and even about what we just read about Messiah, those verses come out of Enoch. These are stories that confirm what Enoch has already said. So you got to realize this is stuff that the latest or the earliest ones books we have are date back to the Second Temple. But the story, I think, is much older than the Second Temple. But this would have been the theological thinking even in the days of the Second Temple, and the theological thinking of the days of Messiah. And Messiah confirms it in all the words he said. He said, Sheol, the gates of Sheol. If this is indeed Sheol, and there is a gate in Sheol, he tells us, for those who have the testimony, when the resurrection comes, even the gates of the grave are not going to stop his assembly from breaking out of Sheol. That's what he just told us in Matthew chapter 16. This only comes from the book of Enoch. The understanding of this only comes from the book of Enoch. So if that's the case, then here is just a model for you to sort of have a pictorial reference to what we're going to talk about as we go forward from here. There are multiple compartments in this thing called Sheol, and we'll describe each one of them as Enoch describes them. Not tonight, but later on we'll describe them. So what does Sheol consist of? Well, for the watchers right here, for the watchers or the angels or the messengers, we just read about a prison. Sheol, for them, there is a place that is a prison, where the angels who sinned before, or what is he talking about who sinned before? He's talking about the angels that birthed Nephilim. He's talking about the watchers who left their place and mingled among men and showed men and women things they should have not have shown them. That's what he's referring to. Where does that story come from? Enoch. It comes from Enoch. And we're going to find out that Father, at some point, he does just that. He imprisons the watchers, those that did it. And he imprisons them in what later on becomes called Tartarus, or an angelic prison, in chains. Or the other word for it would be in the pit, where sometime in the future, the dragon will also be cast into the pit, and a seal will be placed over it until the 1,000 years is over. And of course, again, just another story for another day. Don't have time to get into that for tonight. All right, so that's one. If you want to think about it as compartments, that's one that's described. But there is also, we've already read, that the master went down to preach to the souls who were in prison. But it's not the same prison as this one. Now, I mean, does it really matter? Prison's a prison, right? So not a good thing, whether it's a gilded cage or not. Being a cage is a cage. But it's a prison. It's a place for the unrighteous dead. And what is that place called? Well, it's called a prison, but ultimately it's called Sheol. This is Sheol, the place of the unrighteous dead. Also, as we've already read, a prison. So Messiah, after his death, we are told, goes down to Sheol and he preaches to the prisoners, the unrighteous souls here. Okay, but he also said to the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. Well, we're going to find out in Enoch, there's another section of Sheol, a third section, that's kind of connected to, or very, very close to the place of the unrighteous, but there's a gap between them. In fact, he describes it as a valley that has, I think, four different hollows or valleys, and three of the valleys, the majority of the valleys, are dark, and they are prepared for the unrighteous dead. One of them is prepared for the righteous dead, which should tell us something just right off the bat. The place for the unrighteous is much, much bigger, 3 times as big as the place for the righteous. But the place for the righteous is also called Sheol, but it's not a prison. It's called Abraham's bosom. It's also called paradise. So when Messiah says, truly I say to you, today, I think he means on that actual day, as Messiah gives up the ghost, as these two guys, maybe a couple of hours later, die from their wounds and injuries or rats or fire or whatever it is, whatever they died from, whatever horrible death they died from, one of them, the one who mocked Messiah, it seems like winds up right there. The other one winds up with Mashiach in Abraham's bosom, in paradise. Thus, when you read it, you realize he's saying, oh, wait a minute. He's talking about today. In consciousness, you will be with me in the place of the righteous dead. He's not talking about resurrection yet. That's a whole other story. We haven't gotten there. It'll take us a while to get there. But just to sort of, dot the I's and cross the T's for this, I think this is the conversation that he is having with the thief that's hanging on the tree with him. And we only get this context, we only get this understanding in the book of Enoch. It's the only place where this makes sense. Without the book of Enoch, none of this stuff makes sense. You're putting pieces of a puzzle together without ever put a puzzle together, you always got to do the outside first. You get the framework first, so you know kind of what you're dealing with. This is the framework. And without this, the stuff that we're reading in the New Testament, in the writings of the New Covenant, the writings of the Mosaic Covenant, yeah, they can make sense, but they don't. The pieces don't fit together. They don't jive until you know the whole story. And this is part of the whole story that we have been robbed from, that we are told don't read, don't look at, because the enemy doesn't want us to understand, doesn't want us to know a whole bunch of things. This is just one of them. So we're going to get back to this chart. We'll look at this again. I just wanted to show you guys this. This is going to be where we're heading in all of this stuff. And again, it's online. You guys can download this. Okay, so then the thief on the cross, and one of the evildoers who were hanged was speaking evil of him, saying, "If you're the Messiah, save yourself and us." So obviously not a good thing for this guy. Here he is, being crucified by the Romans, and he still stays unrighteous, and he's going to wind up in a place, a prison, as it is called, for the unrighteous, Sheol. "If you are the Messiah, save yourself and us." But the others responding rebuked him, saying, "Do you not even fear Elohim, since you are under the same judgment?" They were guilty. They were absolutely both guilty of the things, for the reason why they were hanging on that cross. "And we indeed rightly so, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this one has done no wrong." He confessed. He confessed he's Messiah. He confessed there's no reason for him to be here. The reason he's here is bad. It's evil. It's wrong. It's unrighteous. He did it. He made a confession of faith. But this one has done no wrong. "And he said to Yahushua, 'Master, remember me when you come into your kingdom.'" Except he is going to remember him, but it's not going to be when he comes into the kingdom. He's going to remember him on that day when they meet in paradise, or Abraham's bosom. We'll talk more about that. We get into the parables later on and discuss more of Abraham's bosom. So there's another concept or idea that we hear often, or I've heard often, is that, well, Messiah went down, as it does say, and he preached to the spirits in prison, right? That's what we just finished reading. But some of the concepts, the ideas that have come to us over time, is that what he does is he takes the good part of Abraham's bosom and he removes it. He removes those people and brings them up with him. Can't be. It just can't be. That's not the story Enoch tells us. That's not the outside frame of the story. That's not the pattern to the story. And one of the places where this comes from is, of course, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 7. It says, "But to each one of us favor was given according to the measure of the gift of Messiah." Let me make this bigger. The gift of Messiah. That is why it says, "When he went up on high," that is his ascension, "he led captivity, slaves, servants, captive." I put there the PDP, sons, and you'll see why in just a second. "And he gave gifts to men." When he ascended, he did this. He gives gifts to men, and those who were captive, he also makes captive, or leads captive. But what does he went up mean, except that he also first went down into the lower parts of the earth, Sheol. What all the stuff we just finished reading, all the stuff that we saw Messiah ministering or preaching to the souls that were in prison from even long ago. And people look at this and they say, well, so is it telling us that he took the people that were captive there and he brought them up? Well, no, the people that were captive there are the unrighteous dead. The people in Abraham's bosom, they're not captive. And we're going to find out from Ezekiel that they remain there until a specific time. And that time has not come yet. So did he take them and bring them up with him? He couldn't have. He couldn't have. I know some think that, some teach that. He couldn't have. That time has not yet come. And we'll prove it more another time, the next time we get together. But it goes on to say, he who went down is also the one who went up far above the heavens to fill all. And he himself gave some emissaries and some prophets and some evangelists and some shepherds and teachers. These are the gifts he gave to those who were captive. These are the gifts. So the captives he's talking about, his captives, so there were people who were captive. They're captive in him, and he's given gifts now to them. And the gifts are emissaries, prophets, yada, 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 evangelists. I think this is what he's talking about. So when he went down, certainly goes down into the grave, and that's of course the picture of the tomb. All right, he's in the ground there, but I think it's talking about even more than that. I think it's a reference to what we just finished reading in the New Testament letters, that he actually went down and he preached to those, and he was with the thief and many, many others, I'm sure, Abraham, Isaac, all the rest of them, in that place called Abraham's bosom, or paradise. John chapter 8, verse 31 says, so Yahushua said to those Yehudim who believed him, if you stay in my word, and you are truly my taught ones, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free from captivity. PDP version, just so you get where I'm thinking on this. They answered him, we are the seed of Abraham, and have been servants, been in captivity to no one at any time, which is just not true. To no one at any time. How do you say you shall become free? Yahushua answered, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a slave in captivity to sin. So by his death, who does he set free? Who's captive that he sets free? Us, all of us that are willing, all of us that understand that we were captive, he set us free. And the servant, the slave, the one who's captive to sin, does not stay in the house forever. But a son stays captive as a bond slave, a love slave, forever. If the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. So yes, while I believe this verse is speaking about his descent, it's speaking about the gifts and the captivity of us, those who were captive in sin, that have been set free. Of course, people can argue that back and forth, and you can run around with that all you want, but does that just doesn't fit the whole story, as we're going to read when we get into more of the book of Enoch, and try to make sense of these parables and sense of the order of what it is that actually happens when our heart stops, when the cessation of life comes, and what is there? Is there consciousness after? Well, so far we've kind of seen, there absolutely is. We still got to define it a little bit more, but just simply said, yes, there absolutely is. So we'll leave it right there just for tonight. We're going to get more into this. Got lots more to share with you about the death and the grave and Sheol and our place and what happens and the parables the master tells and how they fit. And again, they are only truly understood if you really, really get into the book of Enoch and you begin to understand the story that he's telling. It makes perfect sense. It actually makes the scriptures that we just read make more sense, and the parables the master teaches. And there's a couple of parables, not just the parable of Lazarus. There's a couple of parables. The parables about, working in the field. They all have to do with this. And we'll get into that over the next couple of weeks. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that study for tonight. I know it's been a while since we've been together, but we got a whole bunch of neat stuff to talk about. Don't forget to join us each morning early for our morning manna. It'll be up bright and early, normally by 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's up for all you early birds. And join us on Friday night for our hidden manna. Love to have you guys there with us. Looking forward to have a conversation with Brother Max. Lots of stuff going on in our world right now. Boy, we should all be taking a look at what's happening and be prayed up. Make sure that you are prayed up. And of course, join us for our weekend service as well. Don't forget, guys, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know where you're watching from, all the rest of that stuff. Give us a like. Send this out to somebody. We would appreciate it. Guys, have an awesome night out there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Shalom, everybody.